Today we're going to be talking a little bit more about spiritual gifts and what that means in the life of a believer. Today on Deep Dives, episode 45.
Mm-hmm. You've made it to 45.
45. Yeah, we were supposed to bring our 45s in.
Woo woo! That's right.
We forgot. We kind of got rescheduled. Well, not kind of. We did get rescheduled. I'd like to say it's my fault. It wasn't my fault.
I don't look at it as a fault. It's just a reality. As much of a priority as you put on this podcast, every now and then rescheduling, I think, is a minor miracle in itself.
Well, this was kind of an exception that had to be made anyway because it still had to do with Marcus Point.
Right, that's true.
Because the project managers for the Pace campus or the construction company who's like acting as like owner's rep, that kind of thing.
Right.
They wanted to start bi-weekly meetings since we're getting close to really kicking off like the fundraising and, we're nearing the end of putting in the utilities and the stormwater, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so they weren't aware that we record a podcast every Thursday morning and they put their meetings there.
How about that?
So every other week, they want a Thursday morning meeting to go over church stuff.
So we'll reschedule every other Thursday.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah.
Listeners won't know.
Nope.
We'll still have the same.
I mean, we'll tell them.
Yeah. We'll have the same drop schedule and everything, though.
But it's Saturday right now.
Yes, it is. Just after Camera Club, which we do every second Saturday from 10A to 2P.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're coming right off of that.
Yeah.
And it was a good class today. I don't. This is contrary to most church math.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily count numbers of people in classes as being successful or not successful.
Right.
So my first question about if a class has happened and how it went is not how many people were there. I'm interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
But and maybe that's just something people with small classes say.
Mm-hmm.
I'll continue to say it because I believe in it. We have a handful of people, but those handful of people are there every time. And to me, that's important, to continue a class like that, even if it's just with a handful of people. We've had up to 12, 15 people, whatever situations happen in real life. We're averaging about 6 now.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to meet next week. We're going to go, or next month. We're going to go to the zoo,
Mm-hmm.
and the month after that, we'll go to Beulah Bash Christmas, which will be the third or fourth year that we've gone out there as a club and taken pictures, just really to help the church and to help the photographers just get used to taking event photos.
Yeah.
And everybody that's there, if they make 4 hours on a Saturday to go, it means something.
Mm-hmm.
To them, so we're happy about that. Chris goes and Jadelle, his wife, goes.
Yeah. Every now and then I'm able to make it.
Yep, you are. You made it last month.
Yep.
And with the combination of my teaching style and verbiage and Chris's engineering teaching style and verbiage, we're able to, I think, get some points across to
Get
you.
through my thick skull.
About how to shoot in manual mode, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this before. My style of photography needs is entirely different.
Sure is.
Like there's nothing artistic about it. It's all documentary because I'm taking pictures of bolt heads or cracks in pavement or stuff like that. I'm not necessarily looking for the artistic shot or the balance of color.
Right.
I'm like, how can I most clearly see the stamp on that A325 bolt 20 feet away?
Right.
That kind of stuff.
But many of it, the principles still stand, though.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get as much light in there as possible without overblowing it.
Yeah.
So you might be needing a picture of something that's in a shadow way back in the corner, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And how do I bring up that light without distorting it to the point where it's not readable?
Yeah.
Just knowing the the ways to do that, I think is valuable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, and
I agree.
Being able to use those photos in your presentations, are important. So anyway, it was a good class. Had a good time. Man, it's finally not 1,000 degrees outside.
I know, it was so beautiful this morning.
Man, oh man.
It was 65 degrees when I left the house early this morning.
It's such a welcome change
Yeah.
in life. I rode my bike to work the other day, and I broke a sweat, but I didn't have to change my clothes whenever I got here.
Right.
You know what I mean? I wasn't saturated.
Yeah.
And that was such a welcome thing. The engine inside just goes better. It just runs better,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Open the door to feed Outdoor Kitty, and whenever I either feel the heat and humidity immediately, it feels like ambient temperature is the same, or it's cooler.
Right.
And for the first time a couple of days ago, it was actually cooler outside, and it got my engine going, man.
Yeah.
I was really excited about that.
No, that's always the case. Like, the office where I rent a space has this it's up on the second floor and has this really nice porch. And like, there are times when I'm like, man, I should just like sit out on the porch and review plans or, do something like that.
Right. Now was the time of year to do that if you're out there early enough. So
I need a rocking chair and a dog.
You absolutely do. No doubt about it. So, Josh, we started kind of a new study at church.
Yes.
And on Wednesday night during our gun club, that's being reflected in the kind of the new study. But today you wanted to talk about what book of the Bible was it? It was Bob, the Book of Bob.
Book of Bob,
the
yeah.
Book of Bob.
Before that, though, so we're skipping over one of the things that we've been doing lately, and I thought of a funny question.
Oh goodness! Okay.
That always kind of gets my blood boiling. I wanted to see how it affects you. And the question is, what are one or two or 7 of your pet peeves in life?
Oh goodness!
Like
gracious.
things that shouldn't be annoying, but just absolutely cut to the very core of your being and annoy the heck out of you.
Oh man! Wow. I wish.
How much time do we have?
I wish my pet peeves are like this. I don't really remember that they're pet peeves until it's happening, and then I go, man, are you kidding me? I've got to put up. If I could just admit that I know this is totally me. It's not, and I try my best not to project my faults on the other people. But you did ask about a pet peeve. People crunching really close to my it bothers me.
Yeah.
But you gotta crunch, man. You can't eat silently, right? So I know that's on me. But you asked the question, I'm just telling you.
My wife gets so annoyed with the way that I eat because I swear she hears it more clearly than I do, and I'm the one actually chewing. Like supposedly, this noise should be like conducting through my bone right into my inner ear canal, right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, like maybe my brain turns that sensor off or something when I'm eating, or I just don't have the capacity to have multiple channels running at the same time in my brain, but. Just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she'd be like, "Can you stop?" Like, what?
Well, I could speak on her behalf if I may. She has tried her best to not say something, and it finally gets to the point where you just have to say, "You've already passed the point of, honey, I understand that this is my fault, but if you don't mind, she's already past that,
Right?
So it comes out. Would you please stop?
Yep.
It comes like she's already went through 4 levels.
I just wasn't privy to the other levels.
That's right. We understand that that's the problem. We understand that that's the problem.
And I know that I probably do the same thing to her in other ways because I'll be mulling something over in my mind and weighing pros and cons of all this stuff, and then when I've reached a conclusion, that's when I voice it. And then that kind of catches her by surprise a lot of times. Like, well, Did you think of this? Did you think of this? I'm
Yeah.
like, I thought all of that. That was a long time ago.
That
This is my
filter.
conclusion.
Yeah, right.
She wasn't privy to the brainstorming. She was only was
Right.
brought in at the conclusion, and that kind of catches her off guard sometimes because her problem solving process is entirely different. She has to tell me everything.
You keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a male-female thing.
Oh yeah, it most definitely is. I wish there were more males that would do that when they're around me.
Let me know how you filtered through to get to this conclusion.
Right. Because there's this one guy I know. We haven't gotten to my pet peeves yet, but
Haven't.
where they'll like have something that needs to be figured out, and they'll like ask you a question, but then they don't stop to let you answer the question, but they'll like continue going through their thought process on how they would come to the wrong conclusion to answer that question. Like,
Right.
stop.
Just wait and just wait. Just wait. Let me give one more,
Okay.
and then we'll switch over to you.
All right.
When someone asks a question directly to me, and then I start answering it, and it becomes very clear that they don't care what my answer is. They've asked the question in order to tell me something.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Akin to that is what we've joked about before on this podcast. If I'm describing something or someone asks me what's going on, the person may not say, "Oh, that's nothing,"
Right.
and then they go on about their story. Many times it's just I had to do that. I just pour my heart out about something. Yeah, I had to do that. Means what I just said means nothing to you. You asked me. I wasn't even going to say anything.
Yeah.
But you asked me the question. You asked me, and I'm trying to give you that. You know what I mean? That
Right.
that's I guess that's the top one. I'd rather hear crunching every day of the week than to be set up. I guess because it feels like you're being used.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're being used, and I try not to set those people up to get to that point.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, "How was your day? How's it going?" Because I do want to know, but not really. It's just a greeting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just a greeting. So I try to say other things. Hey, it's warm in here, and see where it goes. Many times, the real sharp ones will circle around somehow to get back to what they want to say.
Yeah.
Instead of saying it. It's let me tell you what I want to tell you, and I'd rather that be the case. Just tell me what you want to tell me. You know what I mean? So anyway. Other than that, it's a perfect world. We are here, Josh. It is and I'm sure that I don't do anything to get on anybody's nerves.
Well, that's the challenge that we all face. Is we're the perfect ones.
Yes,
Everyone else is the problem.
I don't know why people can't get on
The
board
burden of
with that.
perfection is just so heavy.
As soon as everybody understands that, the better we will all be. Thank you very much. Anyway, I think in pickleball. Last couple of weeks, we were doing a devotional in pickleball, and God was talking to me, and I asked everybody to take a week and start thinking about how, in essence, how we get on people's nerves. What do we do to get on people's nerves that will reject them or prevent them from us being used as a tool for people to come to Christ.
Right.
Right? Because I don't want to do something that's getting on somebody's nerves that I don't know about that will prevent them from coming to me one day and asking me about Christ.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I asked the group to pray about that, and I did. And I don't want. I mean, I don't want to say what God told me about what. Your mere existence gets on people's nerves. I'm just kidding. I don't know. But
Just some people.
to some people, yeah, that's right. But I think that's a fair question. What do we do in conversation that prevents people from wanting to be around us more
Mm-hmm.
because we are supposed to be beacons for him.
Yeah.
Anyway, what gets on your nerves, Josh?
So when I went over that question, the two things that popped into my mind right off the top of my head, one is totally stupid, but it gets me so mad. Mm-hmm. You're familiar with Microsoft Word?
I am.
And Microsoft Excel,
I am.
all those.
Yep.
One of my pet peeves when, in engineering, I often have to, review other people's documents and, collaborate with people and writing, engineering reports or, whatever. And I guess the same would, well, not I guess, the same would absolutely be true in like drafting software, like drawing plans, the organization of your drawings, things like that. So Microsoft Word, for example, one thing that gets me so mad, if you're going to center something on the page, there's a button for that will center it exactly.
Oh, gotcha.
People will do that manually by typing a bunch of spaces before the line, before what they type. And I'll come back and it's like my turn to edit the thing. It's like I can't even work on it yet until I fix all of the formatting errors.
Oh my goodness!
In the document, and it just like it shouldn't annoy me as much as it does, but it does. And I find myself being like, "You're a grown adult who does this for a living. How come you don't know how to use center tab? Or anything like that?
Gotcha.
Like one time I literally retyped an entire form for the county because their application was so horribly formatted. And I made it into a PDF you could fill out and send it back to them like, here's your form back. Here's the empty one. Email this to people now, please.
I hope they appreciated that.
They didn't. It's probably lost. I still have it, but and I use it for all my stuff. But yeah. So the other one that came top of my head is, it's usually a pretty busy life when you're working full time and stuff. And like engineering is a really interesting like mental challenge because I've heard it likened to REM sleep, right? When you're deep in that REM sleep and you get woken up real quick, you can go back to sleep and you can get back to REM sleep, but it takes time. And so if you get woken up again, then you're taken out of that. And so you can be woken up 3 or 4 times in the night, and because you've interrupted a significant chunk of REM sleep over those things, you get up the next morning and you're not well rested at all.
That's deep sleep, right?
Yeah.
You're missing the deep sleep.
And engineering work is a lot like that, where you have to have kind of like long periods of uninterrupted time where you can just devote brain power to things. And it's difficult when when you have clients who want to call you all the time, and because it's like I've spent and this isn't just true for engineers. Everybody in business struggles with this to one degree or another, but it's always frustrating when at the end of the day it's like you look back, I'm like, I've been extremely busy. I have gotten nothing done because I've just been dealing with interruptions all day.
Right.
And it's really difficult to communicate that to people a lot of times because it's like, I know I've been working on, such and such project in theory, or I've had it on my desk for the last week, but over that course of a week, I've really only had maybe 2 opportunities to spend an uninterrupted hour on that.
Right.
So, and this is a project that might take, a good 60 hours to do.
Right.
And so it's always this fine line of frustration between like, I want to shut the entire world out so I can get work done, or I have to pause on work so I don't shut the rest of the world out.
Right.
And that always kind of gets me.
It's even this day and age with texting and everything else, it makes it even worse, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, because a lot of times people will call you, leave a voicemail, and then they'll text you that they just left a voicemail and ask you to call them back when you get a chance. But they don't necessarily mean when you get a chance. They just want you to call them back right now.
Yeah.
And like I want to interpret it as when I have a chance. So I'll call you back when I have a chance. It might not be today, but we'll call you back when I get a chance.
Right.
But that doesn't often correspond. But the worst, the absolute worst, is when someone calls, 5 seconds later they call, 5 seconds later they call. And then it's like, well, I was trying to ignore the phone, but now I just want to pick up the phone and rip someone's head off.
How do you get past that? You got to turn stuff off, work on a Saturday, work at something.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. It is tough.
That's why it's nice to be self-employed and you can just turn everything off at 5. It doesn't extend into the evening, and you have that opportunity to just kind of like chill, be with your family.
That's a decision, though.
It's an absolute decision that you have to make. That was one of the prime reasons why I wanted to start my own business, is so I could have the authority to just turn everything off and deal with it the next day.
Yep. Right. Well, I'll tell a little story about my wife and I, and this is on me more than it is her, and she listens to the podcast, so she'll know what I'm talking about. So
she's like, dang right.
That's right. It was my fault. We have a niece, which we adore, who is pregnant, and really, she may have given birth today. She's that pregnant, right? And Donna lives with her mother, so that's always a volatile thing. Anything could, happen at any time.
Because she's taking care of your mother.
Because she's taking care of her mother.
Yeah.
My mother is
her
senior.
mother.
Yeah, my mother is in her 80s. So if I'm unreachable, they would call Donna, and Donna would contact me. And my Aunt Betty, was in the hospital at the time. So I was hearing from my cousin Cindy on updates. You've met Cindy and Buddy. So there's a lot of things that were potentially happening. Everything was pretty stable, but it could go off at any time, right?
Yeah.
So I was about to go get in the woods on my mountain bike, and it's a very therapeutic time for me. It's just I'm not turning mountain biking into a ministry. I'm not asking people to ride with me. I just want to get out there and ride.
Yeah,
on
you want alone time.
Alone time, man. Gosh, I want alone time, and I want to master that craft again. So it's not bragging if you actually say you're good at something whenever you actually were, right? I've heard that was okay to do. I was pretty good at mountain biking.
Right.
Let me just say
it's not conceited, you're convinced.
It's not. Let me just state 2 facts. State champion in 05 and 06.
Right.
Okay. That's just a fact. And you don't do that without having some skill at it. But I wasn't 60 years old then either.
Right.
60 years old now. But I still have skills that I want to get better.
Yeah.
I want to improve those cornering skills and everything. So I'm working on that. That's just for me.
You want to be the best one in the old folks' home.
Nobody ever. That's right. I want to be the best senior citizen guy, the fastest senior. But it's just for me. I'll probably never compete again. Don't care. Just want to get out there and do it. So and Donna kind of knows that. So I get on my bike, get a big prep going because I had to do some things to my bike and all this. I'm at the woods and pretty good weather. And I get on my bike finally after about an hour of prep at the trailhead and start riding, and I get a text. So I'm thinking I need to. I looked at my watch, and it was Donna. And if you know anything about Apple Watch, you can see you got a message, but you can't really read it. You know what I mean? Unless you stop and take. So I just got in a groove. She texted me. So all that went through my mind was Rachel having a baby, Aunt Betty's in the hospital, her mother, my mother. So I stop and I read the text. She says, "Did you eat the last of the Hershey Kisses?"
So did you?
No, I didn't. Did I eat the last of the Hershey's Kisses? Did you eat the last of my mother's Hershey Kisses? And I stopped, and I composed what I thought was a very tactful response, saying pretty much everything that I just got through explaining to you. You know my aunt's in the hospital. Our niece is giving birth. My mother's 80 years. And you're asking me about Hershey's Kisses. I said, and before I take off in the woods, I send her a text. There's this app that I use called Strava, and if I send her my Strava link, she can track me through the woods. So because I have some health problems, heart and Meniere's disease and all this stuff, it's likely sometime I may have a episode in the woods. And if she sees me like staying in one place for any length of time, she may think that something's wrong, right? So if I find myself staying in a place that I have a flat or something like that, I'll text her and say, I just have a flat. Don't worry about it. So she can, she can track me. She knows I'm in the woods because I just sent her the text.
Right.
And she always sends me a thumbs up. Got the text. Understand that you're going. Good.
But this was an emergency.
5 minutes later, did you eat all the Hershey's Kisses? Man, really? No, I didn't. But what she responded with is that I just sent this out because I was just thinking of it right now. I totally get it.
Uh-huh.
I might forget about it later. Now, I don't know why that would be a bad thing if she just forgot about it. I don't know. I mean, if you never mentioned it, I'd be okay with that. But that's just me. It was important enough for her. And if it's important to her, it's important to me.
Yeah.
So I just, I didn't eat because I've done that before.
Uh-huh.
So there's a track record there. So it's fair for her to think that. But what I said was, I have done that, something like, what was it? Now, I haven't eaten the last of anything of your mother's since the last time you and I talked about this.
I got the message.
I've
been a good boy.
I've never do it again. I've always asked her, even if there's like cereal or something, can I have this? Can I eat something? Yes, that's fine. So I get permission.
Right.
But for some reason, she thought maybe, because I do love chocolate.
Yeah.
It's fair for her to wonder if I did it, but I won't ever eat the last of anything again. But anyway, I'm glad we got that straightened out.
Yeah.
I love you, Donna. Okay, Josh.
We got a lot of stuff off our chest today.
Woo.
It's been therapeutic.
That is the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. 27 minutes in.
That was the wrong question to ask today, I guess.
Man, I didn't realize I was carrying that around.
Well, Chris's answer was way more succinct. He just texted me, people.
Oh, pet peeve?
Yeah.
It's people, that's it. That's all I got to tell you. I think you and I both could have answered that for him.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Except for kids. Now, I said this in either gun club or it was a camera club. Whenever Chris says he doesn't like people, what he means is he doesn't like adults.
Right.
He loves kids, and he's really good with kids.
Well,
adults is what he's talking about. I don't know where that age or that number, probably teenagers. As soon as they turn teenagers.
I think, because I remember growing up, like for the first, 30 years of my life, I was usually involved in kids ministry. Mm-hmm. My mom used to teach Sunday school and always involved me in stuff.
Yep.
She used to teach
ministry.
Yeah, puppet ministry. We used to travel around to churches doing puppet stuff, And she used to teach kids church, and at one time my dad was even a Sunday school teacher. But so I've always been in church, and I've always been involved in church. And usually when I was involved in church, it was involved in kids ministry. And as an adult, I can respect a healthy distaste for other adults. I
can appreciate that.
Right.
Hate.
And I can even understand, there's just a hard distinction between kids and adults, in that, both can do the exact same thing, but the way it hits your brain is just entirely different. Like a kid can just be like totally hyper and just talking nonstop, whatever, and it's hilarious because they're a kid and they talk about the funniest things. An adult that just talks nonstop, that like won't let me work or something.
Yeah,
It's
right.
like, can I just? Why do I have to be here?
You don't need me for this.
Right.
Look in the mirror.
Yeah, and there's a line between the two. At some point, one becomes the other and becomes a little bit annoying.
That's crazy.
But yeah, it's different when it's kids.
It is.
Kids. There's a purity to kids and an innocence that
Right.
that when it's an adult, you don't.
Yeah. The T-shirt that says "Jesus loves you and I'm trying," I think is really kind of. It's pretty true.
Yeah.
And we are called to look. We're called to be lights for people.
Yeah.
Well,
that's actually what 1 Corinthians 12 talks about, or we're going to be today.
Okay. Let's jump on into the Bible.
Well, because it talks about spiritual gifts. That's the way chapter 12 starts out. He's continuing a thought from the previous chapter, but he says Paul says this in 1 Corinthians 12 concerning spiritual gifts. I would have you not to. I would not have you ignorant. So
don't be stupid.
Right, exactly. So he's like, we're about to lay this down, some information about spiritual gifts. By the way, Pastor he talked about an excerpt from this chapter this past Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
He's been doing a series called Life Matters.
Right.
And this was one of the things he talked about, and I kind of want to dig into it a little bit. So verse 2, it says, you know that you were Gentiles carried away unto these dumb idols, even as you were led. So not dumb as in stupid, although that's the case, but like, idols, they don't do anything. They just kind of sit there, right? And so, and yet, throughout all of history, people have been driven to worship idols. They don't do anything. So he said this, there are diversities of gifts, but I skipped a verse. Wherefore, I give you to understand that no man speaking by the Spirit of God calls Jesus accursed, and that no man can say that Jesus is Lord but by the Holy Ghost. Now, so he draws this distinction between the dumb idols and the power of Jesus Christ, right? He says, now there's diversities of gifts, but the same Spirit. There are diversities of administrations, but the same Lord. There are diversities of operations, but it's the same God which worketh all in all. So in other words, when we're looking at the body of Christ, there's so many different elements of it, so many different aspects of it, but it's all under the leadership of Christ. And it says, the manifestation of the Spirit is given to every man to profit withal. For to no one is given by the Spirit the word of I put in a wrong word. For to one is given by the Spirit the word of wisdom, to another the word of knowledge by the same Spirit. So some people given wisdom, some people given knowledge, but God gives both. Another faith by the same Spirit, and another the gifts of healing by the same Spirit. Another the working of miracles, to another prophecy, to another discerning of spirits, to another diverse kinds of tongues, to another the interpretation of tongues. But all these worketh with one and the selfsame Spirit, dividing to every man severally as he will. So what's sort of being discussed here is there's a distinction between all of these different, the word that's used in this chapter is spirits or gifts, but God knows who we are. He creates us how we are, and He has a plan for us to be used in the furtherance of the building of His kingdom. And what that means is we can't all be the same thing, because there's a lot of different functions. A church is a good example of that. Can't all be pastors. Can't all be Sunday school teachers. Can't all be security people. all that stuff. But there are some people that have a natural talent for different aspects of that ministry, and it's amazing to see God work in the lives of these people to put together a cohesive church body that functions in a lot of different areas. There's aspects of the church that reaches this group of people, aspects of the church that reaches that group of people. A photography club, you led a ministry that specialized with people with special needs, right? That's something I couldn't do. I don't have that skill set or that understanding, and so God is using these different components of the body of the church. So, verse 12 it says, "As the body is one, hath many members, all the members of that one body, being many, are one body, so also is Christ. For by one Spirit we're all baptized into one body, whether we be Jews or Gentiles, whether we be bond or free, and have been all made to drink into one Spirit. For the body is not one member, but many. If the foot shall say, because I'm not the hand, I'm not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? If the ear shall say, because I'm not the eye, I'm not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? If the whole body were an eye," think about that, "if the whole body were an eye, where were the hearing? If the whole were hearing, where were the smelling? But now hath God set the members, every one of them, in the body, as it hath pleased him." So think of a normal church. What if everybody in the church were pastors? It would be chaos, right? What if everybody in the church was, just the random pew sitter or, nursery workers? It would be chaos. And just like if the body were just a big eyeball, it would be useless.
Right.
An eyeball can see, but it can't hear, can't smell, nothing like that. And so, sometimes within the ranks of churches, really, this can apply to any relationship too. Within the ranks of churches, sometimes people get jealous. Like, well, why is that guy think he's such a big deal?
Yeah.
Like, what am I? Nothing? And this is saying, no, we all have our different roles, our different purposes, our different distinctions in our abilities and the way God uses us. And it reminds me a long time ago in the book of Numbers. And we talked about this several weeks ago when we were doing when we were in the series about Return to Praise. Right. There was this group called the Sons of Korah that had a very interesting story in their lineage, namely the guy after who that lineage was named, Korah. Korah and some other guys who were Levites camped around the tabernacle, thought, why is it that Aaron's sons are the priests? We're all Levites. We're all holy. We're all part of this congregation. Why can't we be this as well? And so they went to Moses and Aaron and voiced that criticism. And Moses just basically said, "Okay, let's try it. Let's run an experiment, and we'll just let God answer this." Because Kohath, the family of Kohath, which is what Korah came from, had a job that God had specified. They were the ones that were responsible for, if I remember correctly, when the tabernacle was broken down, they took all the structural parts down and transported them to the new site. I think that was Kohath. But there was one that was the sticks and the boards, one that was the tapestries and the curtains, one that was the artifacts of the tabernacle. Each family had its own part, and that those jobs were dictated by God. And so, by saying, why is it that we can't be priests? We want to do that too. You're basically going against the plan that God had set up, and we had looked into that previously to see what that symbolism was. Jude talks about that a lot, but so the point is, the body can't all be one thing, and one person can't be every aspect of the body. Right? God gives us gifts. He gives us abilities, and he does that for a purpose. We have this incredible privilege of being used by him to further his kingdom. Well, in 22, 23 says, those members of the body which we think to be less honorable, upon these we bestow more abundant honor, and upon our uncomely parts have more abundant comeliness. For our comely parts have no need, but God hath tempered the body together, having given more abundant honor to that part which lacked, that there should be no schism in the body, but that the members should have the same care one for another. And how that would sort of flesh itself out in this analogy, no one really gives that much attention to the feet, right? Mm-hmm. But the feet support the entire body. Yeah. You cut off the feet, the whole body goes down, mm-hmm. right? And so it might not be the prettiest job in the world, but it's an important one. Yeah. A lot more attention a lot of times is given to the hair. Mm-hmm. Hair is pretty much useless other than it's aesthetically pleasing, yeah. right? Not so much in my case, but there's a lot more products on the shelves about hair than there are for feet.
There you go.
Right.
Well said.
And so, but you can lop the hair off, and you can lop the feet off. One will be way more important, mm-hmm. right?
Yes.
So that sort of plays itself out in the body of Christ too. Is like, just because you have, you don't have the flashy job that's up in front of people and everybody's congratulating, and you're not the attention-getting job. It doesn't mean that there's any job that's more or less important than any other job. If you take what a lot of people think is the most important job in the church, the pastor, and you subtract everybody else, well, then you just have one guy in an empty building, mm-hmm. and that building gets foreclosed on.
Yep. Right.
So all of these parts are needed. So that there should 26, and whether one member suffer and all the members suffer with it, or one member be honored, all the members rejoice with it. Now, and he's about to conclude this, now ye are the body of Christ, and members in particular. And God hath set some in the church, first apostles, secondarily prophets, thirdly teachers, after that miracles, then gifts of healings, helps, governments, diversities of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Are all workers of miracles? Have all gifts of healing? Do all speak with tongues? Do all interpret? But covet earnestly the best gifts, and yet show I unto you a more excellent way. In other words, you guys have these ideals in your mind that you're trying to seek after. Like, man, I'd really like to be that. And he says, you covet the best gifts. However, I'm showing you a more excellent way. And so what's the point of all this, especially when it going back to what Pastor's been talking about on Sundays, right? The point of all this is that we often look at our lives in this context and think, what's the coolest thing I can be, or what's if I want to do something important, I need to try to do that over there, or in reverse, sometimes when we're looking around at the people around us, we're like, if that person wants to be more effective for God, he needs to do what we think that needs to be, right? Yeah. And so there's all these diversity of opinions about each other, about what our roles are and all this stuff. And yet here's God up here in heaven looking at us and like, I created you to be this kind of person. I created you with this kind of talent. I created you with this sort of ability. And I did that because you fit into a part of this overall plan that maybe you don't see or other people see, but I do. And a lot of times this chapter is interpreted as like how do we respond to this, or what gifts should we be developing in our own lives? And it's not necessarily that. The point is, God has a plan for you. He's not asking for anything about your ability. He's just asking for you. He's not asking for your for your business or for your money or for your talents or for your time. He's just asking for you, because if he has you, all of that other stuff follows along behind it. When we put God at the priority and let him develop the gifts and stuff in us as he sees fit, then we truly see ourselves being used of God in a miraculous way. It might not be what we think is the flashiest position or the greatest gift in the world, but it's the spot where God wants us. And that spot, by definition, is where we will be the most, I don't want to say the most useful, but that's the place where we'll fit the best in the overall ministry of God. And that's effective. That's what I'm looking for. That's the place where we'll be the most effective, is where God wants us. And being where God wants us implies that he first has our hearts, has our desires, and has everything about us. That's what he wants. Everything else falls along behind it. And I think that's what Paul was referring to here.
Makes me think about how I often wonder, with different ministries, numbers are important because numbers are souls, right? But there are some, I think, ministries that are never going to have as many people interested or engaged, but it doesn't mean that they're not just as important.
Right. Well, this goes back to what you said earlier about the photography club, how it's not really large in number,
right?
But it's making an impact in people's lives. It's really tempting as a church to sort of be looked at like any corporate entity, right? Where it's there's bills to pay. You have to have more coming in than there is going out, and all that. And there's a truth to all that stuff. And what it often leads to is, your source of income is directly linked to the amount of people that are sitting in the pews. And so there's this mindset of maximizing the number of people in the pews so that it ensures that we still exist, so that we can be a ministry to people who are sitting in the pews and beyond, right? So there's kind of like this feedback loop. I remember being a treasurer of a small church, which did not have a budget for anything. Like, we were scraping by a lot of times because we were just a really small church, and that was always a limitation. It's like, well, we'd like to do this, but we just don't have money. And in places where you don't have money, there's a certain point where you can substitute money for time. But I also noticed that there were also people who like, you have to have both. You have to have money, you have to have time. And sometimes you can interchange those just to a degree, to overcome, a little bit of deficiency in either one. But what was really disturbing a lot of times is people would treat their money as an excuse to not have to get involved.
Right.
And that was always sort of disheartening for those of us who were putting in time and blood and sweat and tears, and were caring about these ministries, and we're looking for help in them. And you look around and almost, and I don't want to mischaracterize, it was a great church, but but in seeing the diversities of how people approach these types of ministry opportunities, sometimes it was, well, I don't have to get involved. That's why I tithe, right? It's either one or the other. I've chose to do this so that I can have time to do other things, and that's. It's clear in that case, God doesn't have their heart, right? Because it's almost like, I pay people to do that. I pay people to do this part of the ministry. I shouldn't have to get involved in, a vacation Bible school program, or, visiting a widow or something like that. And it was clear, when God is looking at us, he really has no interest in what we bring to the table. He's just interested in us being at the table, because it's like that other verse, right? Our bodies are presented a living sacrifice. He just wants us. And I know I keep hitting that point over and over again, but that's really the point that he hammers out is, first and foremost, he just wants us. us dedicated to Him, loving Him, and once that's where it needs to be, everything else behind it falls into place.
It's kind of a matter of the heart, isn't it, Josh? I mean,
Absolutely.
You can be God's and be a Christ follower, and I don't want to say you can do that and not give any money. I guess technically you can, but it's not about that. It's about wanting to do those things. Feeling an obligation. I'll use the word obligation because of what Christ has already done for us.
Yeah.
Obligation in a good way. I want to do these things.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe obligation isn't the right way because I'll just say you're going to want to. You have a desire to do these things. I want to give my money. I want to give my time, whatever I can do. I guess if you look at a bank book or you look at something just on a spreadsheet, you don't see heart necessarily. You can track where your interests are, but you can't see that. I'm giving this much of my income because I really want to make a difference.
Yeah.
There's a ministry here that I'm going to earmark this money for because I know they have this need.
Yeah.
And we're gonna give it there, and I'm going to give my time on Saturday too because I know there's people that want to do that. You can do that all day long, but if your heart isn't there for God, you're doing it for Him. You're doing it in vain.
Right.
Am I right about that? That's
Absolutely.
what we're saying, right?
Yeah.
So it's really, and it's not up to us to judge that.
Yeah.
We're not here on this podcast saying that this needs to happen or this. It's just it's your heart. It's does He have it or does He not have it?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And the way I've heard it put probably the most succinctly is God doesn't want to be first on a list of 10.
Yeah.
He wants to be first on a list of 1.
Of 1. That's right. And what that means for you and God. That's you stay in contact with Him.
Yeah.
In certain ways. So other people can tell you stuff, and that might be God speaking to you. There's certain people in my life that I see as being voices of God.
Right.
Because I trust them. They're spirit-led people. And if I want their advice, I'll ask their advice. And that counts to me as part of God speaking to me.
Yeah.
That's just the way I have chosen to see those things. And my past has proven that way. And I think I don't think that's a bad way of looking at it. I really think, but that doesn't take the place of me being in worship with Him.
Right.
And that one-on-one meditation and listening and that type of thing.
Yeah, and it's in that one-on-one time where your heart is transformed into something that wants to give.
Yeah, right.
When my relationship with God is deep and close, like it needs to be, my natural desire becomes, I want to help with that. I want to help with that. I want to give to that. I want to give to that, because you don't see those elements as, well, this is going to take up my time, or this is going to take my money, or this is going to take my resources or my talents. It's like, this is something that's really important for God, and like I can be part of that, and that's important.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Amen to that, Josh. Thanks for sharing that with us. That's a good word, man, and it's tough. It comes with wisdom. It comes with time. One thing I will say to new believers, if they're listening, that don't let the thought of finance don't let that stop you from coming to church,
right?
Becoming engaged. Let God guide your heart. Look, if you go 10 years without giving a penny, that's up to you and Him.
Right.
Now, there's fruit that's obvious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That you can look at certain behaviors and go, chances are pretty good that these people are really spirit-led.
Right.
If you're coming to church for 10 years and you haven't given a penny or a time, I'm asking myself,
right?
Do you know the God that I know?
Yeah.
Because perhaps, you're reading the same Bible I'm reading, because it just doesn't. But that's not my business,
right?
That's you and that's Him.
Yeah, I remember, especially when you're talking about money, the quantity 10% always comes in to play, right? And I almost I almost cringe every time I hear that, because when you're seeking after God and you have that desire, like, you never think about that. It's always, I just want to do this, right? And back in the Old Testament, this is towards the end of Samuel's life, when or no, it wasn't towards the end of his life. It was towards the end of his reign as a judge in Israel. This was when Israel was wanting a king. They went to Samuel and like, hey, we don't want your kids to be a judge. We want to have a king like all the nations around us. And it was eventually going to be, I mean, it was God's plan for Israel to eventually have a king. That's who King David was. But they kept wanting to jump the gun, because they kept looking at the nations around them. They wanted to be like them. Like, we want to have a king too. And God told Samuel, he's like, Samuel, they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting me.
Right.
And he instructed Samuel to communicate the idea to them that God will grant their request, but don't be surprised when that king takes of their resources, takes of their harvest or their money or whatever, takes their kids to be takes their men to be soldiers, takes their women to be wives or servants or whatever. Don't be surprised when all that happens. And the opposite side of that coin is when you look at your life and you see what part of your life is getting all of your resources and all of your time and all of your talents and abilities and all that stuff. That's an indication of who your God really is.
Right. Yep.
If there's not a component of your life that's given away, and here again, I didn't say a component of your money. I said a component of your life that's not given away in service to God, then there's a problem.
Right. It takes money to run a church.
Yes.
There's no question about that. Nobody's saying that it doesn't.
Right.
And there's some people that are more able to give than others. You just have to work that out.
Yeah.
With him.
Yep.
That's the thing. And I have no problem a preacher speaking about money. My gosh, I think.
Well, it's a good reminder.
Yeah.
I mean, the joke is always like, the preacher always preaches about money, but that's kind of a fact of existing in this world.
Yeah,
is things happen with money.
Absolutely.
But he could just it would be the exact same importance as if he said, I need volunteers, or I need time donated, or I need resources, or whatever. Yeah,
it's all valid. And
the body is made of several different parts.
Yes, that's
you need
right.
all of the parts.
That's exactly right. And if we start talking, let's think of outside of church, just in real life. If somebody starts talking about something and it's starting to kick up something in me, as I've gotten older, I've learned to ask myself, why am I getting my back arched up? Why am I so irritated about this? What is it about that? Why am I so sensitive about this? And I'm saying, maybe you need to ask yourself that too. If you go into church and the preacher starts talking about money and it starts getting on your nerves, why is that? If it why is it something that you need to pay attention to? I don't know, but that's the way it worked with me. I was baptized being poured on to begin with.
Right.
I mean, not very many people get baptized by being poured on. I got poured on in North Carolina after I got saved, and I started going to another church here in town, and they started talking about being submerged, right, being put under the surface of the water, and it started pricking my heart, going, man,
yeah,
why? And I was asking people in my life, why is this bothering me? Why? Maybe it's God talking to you for whatever reason. So I got baptized again.
Right.
After that, I've never never felt the pull to do anything else.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, you've done both. There's not really any other choice.
You get sprinkled.
I guess, yeah.
You get sprinkled, but not in Baptist church. You don't get sprinkled, baby. but I.
So you really need to do that third one.
Maybe so.
To get all the bases covered.
Never felt the need. That's my point.
Yeah.
Why am I being pulled to this? I don't. Is it peer pressure? Is it because I'm here? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I did it, and ask yourself same thing. Why is this bothering us? You know what I mean? Why is if somebody's asking you for your time and it gets on your nerves, why not just say no? If you can't just say no, I'm not going to. If it follows you, then maybe there's something to it. I don't know. But anyway, Josh, it's Saturday. You got a lot of work to do left. You got a lot of videoing to do for your teaching job, and is your structure of the cake that you helped with helped your wife do? Is that all done now?
Should be, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
good, very good. Anyway,
for those who don't know what that means, my wife makes wedding cakes, and they require structural support.
They're not just one layer cakes, baby.
Yep.
These have dimensions.
Yeah, wedding cakes have a lot of engineering inside of them that you don't see. It's shrouded into nice frosting and all that stuff, but there's a structure underneath. And my wife is the only, I think she's the only bakery business in town that has an engineer on staff.
I think that's true. I don't know what she'd do without an engineer, man, because of all the stuff you've told us. It's not only the structure, it's what the structure is made out of.
Yep.
It has to be able to come in contact with the contents of the cake for it not to taint the cake.
Right.
And it's got to be strong enough to be moved because you're the one that moves it. You take it from this place and bring it to another. So it's got to have all these things.
So really funny story real quick at the end here. So this one time, I think it was a 5-tier cake that we had to transport to the wedding venue. And it was stressing me out. It was inherently unstable because, just the nature of it.
5 tiers.
Yeah, 5 tiers. It's not a good height to width ratio. And so...
Hence the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Right. Yeah, perfect. So I calculated its volume. I knew its rough density, and figured out where the centroid of this cake was. And so I knew because I knew the mass of the cake and the centroid of the cake and the physical dimensions of this cake, I knew that if I accelerated beyond a certain speed or braked beyond a certain, accelerated or decelerated beyond a certain extent, that the arrow that normally points downward with the weight of the cake, it would point, and I knew what acceleration or deceleration would make that arrow go outside the base of the cake and induce an instability. And so while we were driving, all of our phones have accelerometers in 3 directions to them. That's how it knows that you're rotating your screen or whatever. And so I have an app that will constantly display the data that's getting taken by the accelerometer. And so I had that right in front of me while I was driving. And so when I turned, I knew how fast I should be going when I was turning, so that the acceleration didn't go that way.
Oh my gosh!
The radial, tangential, or whatever. And then when I sped up or braked, I kept track of that accelerometer, so I knew it couldn't get above this before the cake started getting unstable. And it made it.
It did make it.
But I needed those limitations to do that. I don't think anyone else has done that.
I don't think so. It's either go slow or turn slow or whatever. That's
right.
all. Or hold on to it, whatever. You had the math and science with you. That's good stuff. Josh, thanks. Chris, thanks. Appreciate it. I hope everybody enjoyed listening, got some education out of it, and we pray that you'll continue to seek Christ with everything that you are and everything that you have. We love you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.